The main character has the worst talent score in the entire academy. To make matters worse, he's constantly ganged up on by his classmates. But during one of those bullying incidents, he throws a basic punch, knocking the ringleader's tooth out on the spot. Everyone there is left completely shocked. But then, that idiot calls his big brother for backup. The person known as the Academy's #1 genius challenges him to a fight. In the end, he still gets knocked unconscious by the main character right on the arena stage. That display of strength also catches the attention of the captain of an elite monster hunting squad, who becomes determined to recruit the main character no matter what it takes. At King Tang Academy, Lin Yu confronts two seniors who stole the medicine meant for his sick sister, but Jiang Yang only laughs, mocking Lin Yu's pathetic 0.62 vitality while bragging about his own 3.5 score. Zhao Lei piles on, claiming Lin Yu only got into this elite academy because of his gifted sister. Then Jiang Yang holds up the stolen nutrient solution, taunts him with it, and casually tosses the bottle away. Lin Yu desperately dives to catch it, but he's too late. The bottle shatters across the floor, destroying medicine he can barely afford to replace. Before Lin Yu can fight back, Jiang Yang grabs him by the collar, slams him into a desk, and pins him under his foot, declaring that trash belongs in the dumpster. Only when someone warns them that the teacher is coming do the two bullies finally leave. Injured and humiliated, Lin Yu stares at the shattered medicine, already calculating how much overtime he'll need to keep his sister alive, while silently promising that Jiang Yang and Zhao Lei will pay for this. Just then, senior student Lin Jian reaches down and helps him up. Lin Yu insists he's fine, but before they can talk any longer, his crematorium supervisor calls, furious that he's late again. Lin Yu quickly apologizes and rushes off to work, leaving Lin Jian watching him go. This world changed forever in the year 4832, when a massive cataclysm spread corruption across civilization. Humanity evolved beyond its limits, awakening warriors with supernatural combat abilities. But death became far more terrifying, as corrupted corpses could reanimate into bloodthirsty monsters. The only way to permanently destroy them was complete cremation, which is exactly why Lin Yu works such a dangerous job after school. Wearing heavy protective armor and a respirator, he enters the furnace chamber to burn bodies brought back from the front lines, all because he desperately needs 200,000 before his sister's nutrient pod subscription expires this month. His sister once surpassed 100,000 vitality and awakened the ultra-rare power of psychokinesis, only to mysteriously fall into a coma on their 17th birthday. Now she remains suspended inside medical fluid with no sign of waking, leaving the brother she once protected responsible for keeping her alive. Each cremation earns Lin Yu 200,000, meaning 10 more bodies will cover the cost. He ignites the latest corpse and watches dark corruption twist violently through the flames, a deadly reaction that explains why so few people are willing to do this job. One mistake could kill the operator or turn them into another monster. But tonight, something completely unexpected happens. A strange black mass suddenly pours from the furnace, slipping through the sealed window and spreading across the floor like living smoke. The corruption wraps around Lin Yu's armor, cutting off every escape, but instead of hurting him, it sinks directly into his body. A blue glow fills his vision, and suddenly, memories that aren't his own begin flashing before his eyes. He sees the dead warrior's past. A young man named Lai Yang, who joined the army after graduation and entered the 38th Army Special Operations Brigade under identification HX01861121. Through brutal training, Lai Yang pushed his vitality higher and mastered powerful martial strikes capable of cracking stone. Then, when alien beasts attacked Hill 301, he charged into battle to defend his homeland, only to die in a violent explosion. Lin Yu suddenly snaps back to reality as a mysterious soul-gazing system begins loading before his eyes, revealing that he somehow witnessed the dead warrior's entire past. But the moment the soul-devouring system activates, the chained corpse nearby suddenly moves. An alien beast opens 4 burning eyes as black corruption surges across its body. A floating interface identifies it as a reanimated level 1 alien beast. And before Lin Yu can understand what's happening, the monster tears against its restraints and lunges straight at him. Its claws come crashing down at point-blank range, forcing Lin Yu to brace himself with nowhere left to run. The impact sends him flying backward, and within seconds, the beast pins him beneath its massive body, snapping its jaws inches from his face as black corruption whips around them like living flames. With death closing in, the system gives Lin Yu one chance to cultivate an ability from Lai Yang's soul memories. Ignoring immortal will and ambitious spirit, he immediately chooses basic military martial arts. Just as the Jackalhound finally breaks free from its restraints, the system tells him that real combat can increase his skill proficiency. The beast lunges, but Lin Yu's body suddenly moves on instinct, twisting aside with movements he never learned and landing safely across the chamber. His muscles feel stronger, his senses sharper, and he can suddenly read every attack before it fully comes. When another claw tears toward him, Lin Yu slips past it, leaving the beast to carve a deep trench into the floor instead. Now he knows the upgrade is real. Lai Yang's combat experience is guiding his body like pure instinct. So when the jackal hound charges again, Lin Yu stops running and rushes straight toward it. He slips inside its reach and drives a brutal punch into its skull, smashing the monster headfirst into the reinforced floor. As the stunned beast collapses, even Lin Yu can't believe how strong he's become. The system raises basic military martial arts proficiency by 10%, improving his stamina and ability to detect weak points. Lin Yu suspects the mysterious blue light from the cremation triggered everything, and when the system detects another corpse nearby, soul devouring becomes available again. Before testing it, he places Lai Yang's remains inside the cremation unit, quietly thanks the fallen warrior for his memories, and wishes him a peaceful rest. Then he approaches the dead jackal hound and touches its fur. Instantly, black corruption surges into his arm and spreads throughout his body. Blood rises to his mouth, his legs weaken, and golden light floods his vision as the beast's savage memories invade his mind. Lin Yu screams in agony as he witnesses the jackal hound's life among countless monsters on a burning battlefield, hunting humans and devouring anything it could find. No matter how much it ate, its hunger only grew stronger. When the vision finally ends, Lin Yu is left coughing and shaken, now understanding just how horrifying the battles faced by border warriors truly are. After reading the level 1 soul, the system offers him Claw Skill, Devour Technique, or Chaos Consciousness. Lin Yu also figures out that the blue light from cremation allows him to use soul devouring on corpses afterward. He immediately rejects Devour Technique, since eating people is definitely not an upgrade he wants, and instead chooses Claw Skill, the same ability he just witnessed in battle. Black-red energy wraps around his fingers, transforming both hands into savage armored claws designed for close combat. Level 1 Claw Skill increases hand attacks by 5% and adds laceration damage, while Soul Devour enters a 12-hour cooldown. After dismissing the transformation, Lin Yu studies the system more carefully and notices separate options to use or absorb skills. He suspects absorbing another copy of the same ability might strengthen it instead of simply replacing it, but without a duplicate, he can't test that theory yet. Soul Devour itself is also only level 1, suggesting it can probably be upgraded somehow, though the system refuses to explain how. Rather than waste time guessing, Lin Yu focuses on something he can improve right now: basic military martial arts. With the private chamber still available, he follows Lai Yang's body-forging memories and begins training. Every punch, kick, turn, and transition flows with discipline and precision far beyond anything taught at school. The movements are difficult, but Lai Yang's inherited experience makes them feel as though Lin Yu has practiced them countless times before. As the training grows more intense, he removes his protective coat and notices that this method circulates vitality far more smoothly and efficiently than the basic body-forging technique taught at school. Excited by the difference, he keeps training through the entire night. By the next morning, Lin Yu is completely exhausted and asleep at his classroom desk until the teacher wakes him, reminding him that the college entrance exams are only 2 months away. Lin Yu quickly apologizes without mentioning the monster, the mysterious system, or his secret overnight training. The teacher eventually dismisses the class, privately regretting what seems like wasted potential. But the truth is, Lin Yu had been so excited that he trained until sunrise, and despite all that effort, his basic military martial arts proficiency only increased by 1%, bringing it to 11%. Lin Yu quickly realizes actual combat raises proficiency much faster than training, making the system's mysterious absorb option even more tempting. But before he can think further, Zhao Lei starts mocking his future, and even brings his comatose sister into it. Despite acting confident, Zhao Lei can't help feeling uneasy, because Lin Yu somehow looks stronger and carries a completely different presence after just one night. Lin Jian steps in and tells Zhao Lei he's gone too far, but Lin Yu simply walks away, joking that she shouldn't stand too close or she might catch his stupidity. Lin Jian watches him leave, surprised that Lin Yu somehow became more handsome and noticeably better built overnight. Furious at being ignored, Zhao Lei follows him and keeps throwing insults until Lin Yu finally turns around and calmly challenges him to a real fight in the martial arts room. News spreads quickly, drawing students from across the academy. With 2.7 vitality and specialized combat training, Zhao Lei is already considered a quasi-warrior, while Lin Yu has always been known as the weak student with only 0.62 vitality. Both accept the academy's rule that free sparring is at their own risk, and while Zhao Lei arrives surrounded by supporters, Lin Yu steps forward alone. Zhao Lei's friends urge him to finish the fight with one punch, and with Zhang Yang absent, Zhao Lei plans to personally teach Lin Yu a lesson. But Lin Yu simply calls him Zhang Yang's obedient lapdog. Enraged, Zhao Lei charges forward and throws a punch straight at his face. Lin Jian immediately shouts a warning, expecting Lin Yu to be crushed, but to everyone's shock, he catches Zhao Lei's wrist with one hand and stops the attack cold. Lin Yu reminds him that he promised to make both bullies regret what they did, leaving Zhao Lei terrified by strength that should be impossible for someone with 0.62 vitality. Lin Yu twists his wrist, throws him off balance, and drives a precise military strike into his face. A brutal combination follows, completely destroying Zhao Lei's defense before the final blow sends him flying across the room. He crashes to the floor, battered and bleeding, even losing a tooth in the process. Lin Yu coldly warns him that insulting his sister again will cost far more than a tooth, then grabs his backpack and walks away. Unable to accept the humiliation, Zhao Lei spots a combat knife, grabs it, and charges Lin Yu from behind, screaming for him to die. Lin Yu instantly senses the killing intent and turns just as the blade comes crashing down. His claw skill activates, covering his hand in black-red armor as he blocks the knife and throws Zhao Lei aside. With deadly talons hovering beside the terrified bully, Lin Yu calmly asks if he still wants to continue. The crowd erupts in confusion, wondering whether his transformed hand is a weapon, a special ability, or even corruption. Lin Yu simply retracts the claws, picks up his bag, and leaves. Zhao Lei can only shout that Jiang Yang will avenge him, but Lin Yu answers that he'll be waiting. That night, Lin Yu returns to the crematorium with Soul Devour's 12-hour cooldown finally over. Before he can reach the furnace chamber, his supervisor appears and demands some respect, claiming Lin Yu should be grateful for being given such a high-paying job. Lin Yu knows the truth, though. Nobody else wants such dangerous work. Another large shipment of bodies has arrived, and after ordering him to stop slacking, the supervisor leaves him alone. Inside cold storage, Lin Yu finds one alien beast and 2 fallen soldiers waiting for cremation. The growing number of military casualties immediately worries him. The Jackal Hound's memories already showed defensive positions being overwhelmed by monsters, raising the possibility that humanity's border defenses are approaching a serious crisis. With no official news confirming anything, Lin Yu can only focus on becoming stronger as quickly as possible. He apologizes to the first fallen soldier before placing a hand on the body and activating Soul Devour. Blue-black energy rises as another set of memories enters his mind. Seeing a uniform similar to Lai Yang's, Lin Yu hopes this soldier possessed the same military combat training. The system identifies the deceased as first-class soldier Wang Ming and offers 3 choices: military combat art, a corrupted badge, or sacrificial courage. Lin Yu immediately chooses military combat art, deliberately searching for a duplicate ability. This time, instead of selecting use, he chooses absorb. His theory turns out to be correct. The matching skills combine, instantly upgrading his military combat art to level 2 with 10% progress and granting a 20% physical enhancement. Even better, the upgraded ability can now identify weak points and predict an opponent's attack path half a second in advance. Lin Yu finally understands the true potential of absorb. As long as he finds souls carrying matching abilities, he can continuously strengthen and level up his existing skills. Lin Yu's excitement doesn't last long, because Soul Devour immediately enters another 12-hour cooldown, meaning he can't simply farm every corpse in the morgue for unlimited power. He returns the soldier's body to the gurney and decides to finish his work before training again. Meanwhile, far away on the frontier, another brutal battle has ended, leaving the ground covered with fallen soldiers and alien beasts. Transport crews load the dead onto trucks, including one warrior whose shattered neck is barely still attached, while piles of monster corpses are hauled away from the battlefield. Once the first truck is full, it heads into the darkness, but no one notices something moving beneath the bodies. A purple limb slowly rises from the pile, then a supposedly dead alien beast opens a glowing red eye, followed by another. The corruption is reanimating the entire shipment. Back at King Tang Academy, trouble is already waiting. Jiang Yang corners Lin Jian in the hallway and gives her one final order. Bring Lin Yu to the sports field after school and make him kneel before Zhao Lei, or she might not leave the corridor on her own feet. Lin Jian refuses, insisting Zhao Lei attacked first and that they're nothing but bullies. The bandaged Zhao Lei accuses her of helping Lin Yu and laughing while he was beaten, but she immediately denies it. Then one of Jiang Yang's lackeys snatches the blue notebook she's holding tightly against her chest. Seeing her panic, he assumes it was prepared for Lin Yu and begins flipping through pages filled with highlighted concepts and detailed explanations. He mocks her effort, saying no amount of studying can turn trash into something useful, then tears the notebook apart and scatters weeks of handwritten notes across the floor. Lin Jian desperately tries to stop him, but Zhao Lei grabs her wrist while Jiang Yang casually walks across the ruined pages. He mocks her for caring so much about a notebook, grabs her chin, and tells her that pleasing him would be far more worthwhile than wasting time on trash like Lin Yu. Furious, Lin Jian bites his thumb and breaks free. Jiang Yang immediately slaps her across the face, while Zhao Lei applauds from the side. Those notes took Lin Jian half a month to prepare for Lin Yu, so despite everything, she desperately reaches for the remaining pages. Jiang Yang refuses to let her, throwing her onto the corridor floor and boasting that with his superior vitality, no student in this academy can match his strength or speed. Since she dared resist him, he decides to teach her a lesson she'll never forget and orders 3 lackeys to attack together, even promising to take responsibility if they seriously injure her. The first guy eagerly raises his fist, but before he can strike, a hand suddenly clamps around his wrist. Lin Yu has arrived. Coldly staring at the group, he asks whether 4 guys attacking 1 girl have any shame. Lin Jian immediately tells him to leave before things get worse, but Lin Yu twists the attacker's arm until the lackey drops to the floor screaming. Zhang Yang is actually pleased to see him, since now he doesn't have to search for his target. Then Lin Yu notices the torn pages scattered across the floor and finds Lin Jian's carefully written warrior assessment notes, along with words of encouragement meant specifically for him. Seeing what they did, Lin Yu decides these rabid dogs need their teeth knocked out. Zhang Yang laughs at the confidence of someone he considers trash and steps forward to put him back in his place. But before he can react, Lin Yu's fist smashes across his face. A second compact strike drives into his body, folding him over, and the final blow sends King Tang Academy's strongest senior flying across the corridor. Lin Yu then promises to repay everything they did to Lin Jian twice over. The surrounding students are stunned. Just yesterday, Lin Yu was everyone's punching bag, yet now he has challenged Zhao Lei and Jiang Yang back-to-back. Xiao Lei desperately screams for brother Zhang to beat him to death, while Zhang Yang gets back up and admits that his former punching bag has suddenly grown some backbone. Instead of settling things here, he challenges Lin Yu to a public duel at the central training ground 3 days from now. If Lin Yu wins, Zhang Yang promises an apology, compensation, and that they'll never bother him again. Then he reveals the price of losing. Lin Yu must kneel before the entire school, publicly admit that he's trash, and voluntarily drop out of King Tang Academy. An official duel application lands between them, and everyone immediately understands Zhang Yang's real goal. He wants to completely destroy Lin Yu in front of the entire academy. Lin Jian desperately reminds him that his comatose sister still depends on him, while the surrounding students compare Zhang Yang's 3.5 vitality against Lin Yu's score below 1 and see absolutely no chance of victory. Xiao Lei even mocks him, saying that if he kneels 3 times right now, brother Zhang might still show him some mercy. Ignoring everyone's warnings, Lin Yu accepts the duel, but adds one condition of his own. The entire fight must be recorded and publicly broadcast instead of being hidden behind academy walls. He signs the official agreement without hesitation, determined to make sure everyone remembers what happens 3 days from now. Zhang Yang finds his confidence almost laughable, but Lin Yu simply promises that the broadcast will show everyone exactly who belongs in the trash. That evening, he returns to the crematorium with only 3 days to grow stronger, planning to improve his military combat art and absorb any useful abilities he can find. Losing this duel could cost him his education, reputation, and future, so every opportunity matters. Tonight's workload is unusually heavy, with bodies being redirected from Crematorium 1 because even that facility can't process everything. This immediately worries Lin Yu, since Crematorium 1 normally handles the strongest alien beasts. His supervisor briefly praises him for having the highest vitality among the workers here, then immediately starts ordering him around again, leaving Lin Yu silently wondering how the old man's attitude can change so quickly. Meanwhile, inside Incineration Room 7, a muscular worker is dragging a massive alien beast toward the furnace when black corruption suddenly wraps around his throat. Before he can escape, the supposedly dead monster rises behind him with glowing eyes and attacks. A scream echoes through the sealed chamber, followed by a burst of blood, and then everything goes silent. Next door in Room 6, Lin Yu hears what sounds like a scream, but when nothing follows, he reluctantly returns to work. Every corpse assigned to him tonight belongs to an alien beast, meaning there are no easy military skill duplicates to absorb. Still, fewer dead soldiers might at least mean better news from the front line. Then something strange catches his attention. The scales on one beast's tail are changing color. As the darkness spreads across its body, Lin Yu realizes corruption is reanimating it, but he notices one moment too late. The monster suddenly erupts upward and charges through a cloud of black energy. Lin Yu barely ducks beneath a massive sweep that nearly takes his head off, but when the creature lands, its purple body blends into the surroundings and completely disappears. Lin Yu immediately understands the trick. This stealth beast entered the crematorium disguised among rotting tissue on another corpse, meaning dangerous monsters infiltrated the facility through what should have been a secure frontline shipment. If it escapes this room, the entire crematorium could become a slaughterhouse. Lin Yu closes his eyes and relies on his level 2 military combat art, focusing on breathing, pressure against the floor, and tiny movements in the air. Slowly, he maps the invisible creature's position. The moment his golden eye opens, he finds it. Lin Yu immediately activates the control panel and seals the chamber, then hurls a metal restraint ring directly at the hidden monster's head. The impact exposes its purple skull and forces the creature back into view. Furious, the beast abandons stealth and launches itself at him with its claws extended. Lin Yu activates Claw Skill, covering his hands in armored talons before meeting the attack head-on. Corrupted blood sprays across him during the collision, raising the terrifying possibility of infection, but his upgraded combat art predicts the attack path half a second early, allowing him to escape with only a shallow scratch on his neck. Suddenly, an emergency broadcast warns that phantom-scale stealth beasts have appeared in rooms 3, 7, 14, and 15, and everyone is ordered to evacuate immediately. A heavy silhouette appears beyond Lin Yu's doorway, but sensing no unusual energy outside, he decides the corridor is temporarily safe. Following the disturbance, he reaches room 7 and finally discovers the source of the earlier scream. The worker inside is already lying dead in a pool of blood. Lin Yu immediately realizes multiple monsters entered the facility undetected, and nobody knows how many are actually loose. Suddenly, several terrified employees race down the corridor with an entire pack of beasts chasing them. Without hesitation, Lin Yu hurls his metal restraint at the nearest monster, smashing its head sideways and buying the workers precious time. Someone ahead opens the reinforced safe room and desperately waves everyone inside. Lin Yu joins the others in sprinting towards shelter as several monsters close in behind them. Knowing he can't fight the entire pack alone, he focuses on reaching safety first. But just as they're about to escape, another worker suddenly grabs him and orders him to stay behind and cover everyone's retreat, openly calling Lin Yu disposable trash and trying to sacrifice the student so the rest of them can survive. The betrayal leaves Lin Yu directly beneath a camouflaged beast's snapping jaws, but his enhanced prediction catches the hidden attack just in time, allowing him to roll away. Instead of helping, the other workers rush into the safe room and demand the door be closed immediately. Lin Yu desperately shouts for one more second as he races toward them, but the reinforced barrier slams shut right in front of him. Someone inside even coldly says that his death means one less burden for everyone else. Furious, Lin Yu pounds on the door and demands they open it, but no matter how hard he hits, nobody answers. Now trapped outside with a pack of phantom-scale beasts closing in, his fear turns into pure determination. 4 monsters move together in a coordinated formation, cutting off every possible escape. With nowhere left to run, Lin Yu accepts that fighting is his only option. Frontline warriors face horrors like this every day and still charge forward. And after inheriting their hard-earned combat skills, he refuses to disgrace their courage. More importantly, his sister is still waiting for him. He has to survive. Lin Yu attacks first, kicking the nearest beast before their formation can fully close around him. The blow barely hurts it, but raw strength was never his real plan. By concentrating completely, his level 2 military combat art detects subtle energy fluctuations moving through the creature's corrupted bodies. He dodges their coordinated counterattack while tracking several enemies at once, and the moment one fluctuation exposes a weak point, Lin Yu strikes. His transformed claw tears directly through the beast's vulnerable center, sending blood spraying across the corridor. Another monster attacks immediately, but Lin Yu keeps moving, ripping through its abdomen and dropping a second enemy before it can overwhelm him. As the remaining beasts charge together, claw skill spreads farther up his arm, forming an even larger armored weapon. Lin Yu drives those talons straight through another monster's skull, killing it at point-blank range. But the fight isn't over. 2 beasts still remain, and both suddenly disappear. This time, their camouflage is so complete that even the energy fluctuations Lin Yu relied on vanish. Knowing an invisible attack could come from anywhere, he forces himself to stay calm. Closing his eyes, he slows his breathing and separates every tiny sound in the corridor from his own heartbeat. Eventually, faint movement and dripping blood reveal something approaching from behind. The moment he hears a subtle scrape, his golden eye snaps open. The hiding game is over. Lin Yu lunges directly toward the invisible target and smashes his transformed claw into its face, forcing the beast out of camouflage in a burst of blood. But the second monster attacks from behind exactly as planned. With no time to dodge, Lin Yu sacrifices his left arm to block the killing blow. The beast's talons tear into his limb, leaving him badly wounded as blood pools beneath him. However, that painful sacrifice gives him exactly what he needs. The monster retreats and disappears again, believing its camouflage has restored the advantage, but Lin Yu knows it won't escape this time. Fresh blood droplets begin falling from empty air, revealing the invisible creature's movements. Following the trail upward, Lin Yu realizes it's hiding on the ceiling. The beast's red eye widens when it sees him staring directly at its position. During the previous attack, Lin Yu deliberately covered its claws with his own blood, creating a trail that even perfect camouflage couldn't hide. Exposed, the monster drops from the ceiling and commits everything to one final attack. Lin Yu charges forward with his transformed claws ready. Their attacks cross in midair, but his blood-red talons tear completely through the creature. Lin Yu crashes onto the floor alive while the beast's severed body falls apart behind him. With the battle finally over, exhaustion and blood loss immediately overwhelm him. Still, Lin Yu refuses to give up, reminding himself that he has to escape because his sister is waiting for him. He manages to crawl a little farther through the blood-soaked corridor before his body finally gives out. Surrounded by the monsters he killed, Lin Yu loses consciousness with his corrupted-looking claws still fully exposed. And just then, an armed military rescue unit enters the corridor, only 30 meters away. A military rescue squad finally reaches the blood-soaked corridor, and their white-haired captain immediately warns everyone to stay on maximum alert for any surviving monsters. But one masked soldier soon discovers something far more shocking. An unconscious teenager lying among the mutilated bodies of several alien beasts. As the workers inside the safe room finally emerge, desperately asking whether the danger is over, the captain confirms they're temporarily safe and divides his squad between rescuing survivors and investigating the scene. The wounds covering the dead beasts immediately catch his attention because they're far too savage to have come from ordinary military weapons. Then a soldier reports that the blood-covered teenager is still alive. Before anyone can help him, however, one terrified worker points at Lin Yu's transformed hand. Black corruption still coils around his orange talons, making him look dangerously similar to an infected monster. Several soldiers immediately consider executing him before the transformation can spread, but the captain stops them when he notices something unusual. Lin Yu's monstrous fingers are slowly returning to normal. The cowardly workers still demand his death, insisting everyone will be in danger if he wakes up. The loudest among them is especially desperate because he secretly fears Lin Yu will reveal how they deliberately locked him outside to die. But the captain puts a blade against the man and warns that one more word will be his last. Looking closer, they discover flesh and scales still trapped between Lin Yu's fingers, proving that he personally killed 4 phantom scale beasts. Even the masked soldier admits taking down that many would be difficult for their entire squad working together. Still desperate to have Lin Yu eliminated, the guilty worker claims the student only has 0.68 vitality, making such a feat impossible. But to the captain, that only makes Lin Yu more extraordinary. Someone that weak defeating 4 beasts could be a genuine combat prodigy. More importantly, true corruption never reverses, so the fact that Lin Yu's hand returned to normal proves he isn't infected. With that settled, the captain takes responsibility for the injured teenager and orders the squad to clean up the facility. Lin Yu is transported to a modern hospital, where he eventually wakes to the steady sound of medical equipment. Confused at first, he quickly realizes someone rescued him after he collapsed. The white-haired captain is waiting nearby and assures him that the danger has passed. Lin Yu immediately asks who he is, and the man introduces himself as Chen Zhen, captain of the district's corruption cleanup squad. Chen Zhen sincerely apologizes for arriving late and leaving Lin Yu to fight alone. But Lin Yu understands that the invasion happened too suddenly for anyone to respond perfectly. Chen Zhen then reveals that Lin Yu killed 4 phantom scale beasts, including 1 elite-level creature. Impressed by his courage and potential, the captain offers him a chance to become an official warrior within their squad. Lin Yu can barely believe the invitation is real. When Chen Zhen asks why becoming a warrior matters so much to him, Lin Yu remembers the countless monsters he has seen and the fallen soldiers constantly arriving at the crematorium. With casualties increasing, remaining powerless and waiting for disaster feels far worse than fighting back. More importantly, becoming stronger would allow him to personally protect his sister and the family he still has left. Chen Zhen respects his answer, but explains that joining the squad requires passing the official warrior selection trial. Normally, applicants need vitality above 3, meaning Lin Yu doesn't qualify through the standard process. Instead, Chen Zhen gives him a captain's recommendation that allows him to bypass the entry requirement entirely. The trial begins in 1 month, giving Lin Yu limited time to prepare. Before leaving, Chen Zhen tells him to recover, train hard, and arrive ready. The opportunity means even more than becoming stronger, because official warrior status provides access to elite medical resources that might finally offer hope for his sister. Once alone, Lin Yu turns his attention back to the system, which has harvested the soul memory of yesterday's elite phantom scale beast. 3 rewards appear: Scale Armor Defense, Claw Enhancement, and Aura Camouflage. Scale Armor would strengthen his defense, covering a major weakness exposed during the corridor battle, while Claw Enhancement would make his already powerful close-range attacks even deadlier. But Aura Camouflage offers the near invisibility that made the elite beast almost impossible to detect, and Lin Yu remembers that only spilled blood revealed its location. Seeing the enormous potential of such an ability, he chooses Aura Camouflage. The system explains that its duration depends entirely on his physical stamina. Once activated, the skill conceals Lin Yu's aura and blends his body into the surrounding environment. His first attempt isn't perfect, though. At level 1, Aura Camouflage makes him translucent while standing still, but his outline becomes blurry and noticeable whenever he moves, meaning he'll need plenty of practice before he can truly disappear. With Soul Devour still on cooldown, Lin Yu spends every hour of recovery mastering the abilities he already has, knowing Aura Camouflage could become his greatest trump card against Yang Yang. But outdoor training quickly teaches him that camouflage isn't simply turning invisible. It means completely blending into the surrounding environment. At first, his unstable aura leaks so badly that he can't even fool a harmless bird. Realizing control is the key, Lin Yu meditates beneath the mountain and repeatedly compresses his energy with the same precision used by the phantom scale beast. His concealment gradually improves until, standing before a mirror, he manages to make half his reflection disappear. Then he focuses on one hand and erases it completely, proving he can control the ability over individual parts of his body instead of activating everything at once. After repeated practice, Lin Yu finally achieves complete concealment, raising level 1 Aura Camouflage proficiency by 5%. With the technique he desperately needed now under control, he grabs Chen Zhen's recommendation and prepares to show Jiang Yang exactly who the real trash is. Soon, King Tang Academy's training ground is packed with students waiting for the public duel that could end with Lin Yu's humiliation and expulsion. Lin Jian is especially worried because he disappeared on leave for several days without explaining anything. Meanwhile, Jiang Yang's allies secretly prepare hidden traps around the arena to make sure their target never walks away safely. Xiang Yang finally enters surrounded by blazing power, deliberately intimidating the entire crowd before mocking Lin Yu for apparently being too scared to show up. Even the school staff begin assuming the reckless challenger has finally backed out until a dark silhouette appears at the arena entrance. Lin Yu walks onto the stage with a confidence nobody remembers him possessing, but immediately notices suspicious discoloration along several floorboards near the platform's edge. Jiang Yang mocks him for barely showing up, while Lin Yu calmly tells him to start thinking about how he'll kneel and apologize after losing. Enraged, Jiang Yang attacks without warning, launching a powerful punch directly at him. Lin Yu smoothly slips aside, and the fist hits nothing. Jiang Yang follows with a rapid combination, but every attack misses as Lin Yu's military combat art predicts each path before it reaches him. His allies keep cheering anyway, convinced the massive vitality difference guarantees victory. Then Lin Yu deliberately steps onto one of the suspicious floor tiles, triggering their hidden plan. Jiang Yang immediately corners him above the trap as flames spiral around his body and his full vitality gathers into one devastating downward punch. He confidently promises this attack will send Lin Yu flying out of the arena, but Lin Yu only smiles. This fully committed strike is exactly what he was waiting for. Aura camouflage activates, and Lin Yu suddenly disappears from beneath Jiang Yang's fist before silently slipping behind him. The entire audience erupts in shock as the supposedly talentless student reveals a supernatural concealment ability. Jiang Yang dismisses it as a cheap trick and begins swinging wildly through empty space, demanding Lin Yu show himself. Instead, an invisible strike suddenly crashes into his ribs and forces out a painful scream. Blue crystal armor immediately spreads across Jiang Yang's body, and humiliation turns his anger murderous. He secretly orders an accomplice to activate every hidden mechanism around the arena. Electrified fencing rises around the platform, while flames ignite along the boundaries, transforming an official school duel into a sealed cage. A supervising teacher immediately protests that these lethal modifications violate the rules, but Jiang Yang arrogantly declares that inside this arena, he decides what the rules are. Protected by crystal armor, he launches another brutal charge through the flames, forcing Lin Yu backward. Believing he has located his invisible opponent, Jiang Yang attacks with increasing confidence, but Lin Yu kicks off the damaged floor and narrowly escapes the explosive impact. He knows a direct contest of strength is impossible, so victory depends on finding one weakness. As Jiang Yang charges again beneath seemingly flawless crystal protection, Lin Yu concentrates his enhanced perception and studies the energy flowing throughout the armor. Eventually, he notices everything originates from one concentrated blue core beneath Jiang Yang's chest, inside his dantian. If he can strike that point, the entire defense could collapse. Lin Yu activates aura camouflage again and slips past Jiang Yang's rushing fist. Jiang Yang spins around in alarm when his opponent disappears mid-attack, angrily shouting that only worthless trash relies on underhanded tricks. But he has no idea Lin Yu is already approaching from his blind side. With the armor's hidden energy source locked in his sights, Lin Yu gathers corruption around his claw and drives a devastating strike directly toward the core. Even Lin Yu's claw skill can't pierce Jiang Yang's brilliant crystal armor, stopping his strongest cutting attack completely. Jiang Yang proudly boasts that this ranked defense is something Lin Yu couldn't break even in his next life. Lin Yu quickly retreats before a counterattack can land and studies the marks left behind. The claws failed, but the armor clearly absorbed some damage, meaning repeated blunt strikes might eventually break through. Jiang Yang also starts observing more carefully, convinced every ability has a weakness and that aura camouflage must be no different. Lin Yu suddenly attacks from above with a spinning kick aimed directly at the armor's central protection. The impact forces Jiang Yang backward, but the glowing crystal shell remains intact, prompting another smug taunt about whether Lin Yu has finally run out of tricks. Lin Yu answers with another heavy strike, but this time Jiang Yang notices a faint energy fluctuation moving through the camouflage. Believing he has finally discovered the ability's weakness, Jiang Yang prepares to counter, but Lin Yu still manages to drive another concentrated blow directly over the dantian core. Jiang Yang laughs, insisting perfect accuracy means nothing when raw strength can't overcome an A-rank defense. Lin Yu immediately proves otherwise by attacking the exact same point again. His second focused blow slams into the blue chest plate, and for the first time, a crack spreads across the crystal armor. Jiang Yang's arrogance turns to shock as he realizes ordinary martial strikes are actually damaging his supposedly invincible defense. Furious, he grabs Lin Yu's wrist and raises his knee for a brutal close-range attack, declaring that all of Lin Yu's little tricks are finished. But level 2 military combat art already predicts what's coming. Instead of escaping, Lin Yu deliberately accepts the hit. Jiang Yang's knee crashes into his stomach with tremendous force, but Lin Yu endures the pain because this is the opening he needs. His free fist immediately smashes into the weakened dantian plate, spreading cracks across the armor until the protection around Jiang Yang's chest and shoulders begins to fail. Still unwilling to admit defeat, Jiang Yang calls invisibility a coward's trick and claims Lin Yu has no qualities worthy of a true warrior. Hearing that, Lin Yu promises he won't use camouflage or sneak attacks again. Both hands transform into blazing red claws as he declares that the next exchange will decide everything. Jiang Yang laughs at the same claws that failed to pierce his armor earlier, and both fighters charge directly at each other. Zhang Yang unleashes a full-power kick meant to end the fight completely, but his attack path was already predicted before he even moved. Lin Yu slips inside the arc of the kick and drives both claws directly into the already fractured Danshin plate. Zhang Yang freezes in disbelief as cracks instantly spread across every section of his crystal armor. The energy circulation holding it together collapses, and the supposedly invincible rank defense explodes into a storm of blue shards. Zhang Yang crashes beside the flames, unable to understand how someone he always called trash actually defeated him. Standing over his fallen bully, Lin Yu calmly tells him that neither of them was ever anything special. Zhang Yang can only glare upward in humiliation before one final strike plants him face first into the stage. The entire arena erupts. A student with only 0.68 vitality has defeated Zhang Yang despite every trap and rigged advantage thrown against him. Lin Jian finally smiles in relief, proudly insisting she always knew her junior could win. But from the private stands, Zhang Yang's father and academy board director, Zhang Jiangguo, watches everything with barely contained fury. Academic Affairs Dean Lai Minnu nervously accepts responsibility and promises a full investigation during next week's examination. Zhang Jiangguo demands punishment for every supposed rule violation, clearly targeting the student who publicly humiliated his son, and the dean quickly assures him that a satisfying result will be delivered. Lin Yu may have won the duel, but he has also made enemies powerful enough to destroy an ordinary student's future. Before he can worry about that, a communicator alert brings another opportunity. Chen Zhen assigns him part-time work at Crematorium 1, warning that the facility handles extremely dangerous remains and requires serious caution. Lin Yu accepts immediately. The higher pay is useful, but stronger corpses could also mean stronger souls and far more valuable abilities. Since his shift doesn't begin until later, Lin Yu heads to City Central Hospital to visit his sister. Behind sealed glass, he approaches the nutrient pod holding the only family he has left. His unconscious sister remains suspended in medical fluid, her body connected to tubes and life support equipment. Lin Yu gently raises a hand toward the glass and tells her that he finally came to see her, while memories return of the childhood bullies who mocked his pathetic vitality and claimed he would remain useless forever. Back when they were children, Lin Yu's fearless sister never let anyone bully him. She would charge straight at his tormentors, threatening to beat up anyone who dared touch her little brother again, then remind Lin Yu that no matter what others said, he would always be the best in her eyes. Remembering how she always restored his confidence, Lin Yu stands before her nutrient pod and quietly promises that this time, he'll be the one to save her. But hospital staff soon request a serious conversation about her condition, and from the doctor's expression alone, Lin Yu knows the news is bad. He tells him not to hide anything. The doctor explains that his sister's illness was originally caused by food contaminated with corruption. Until now, treatment had kept the infection under control and maintained her basic vital signs. But recently, the corruption began invading her internal organs at an alarming rate. At this pace, she may have only 6 months left. Lin Yu is devastated. The medication had worked for years, so he can't understand why her condition suddenly collapsed. The doctor believes prolonged treatment allowed the corruption to develop resistance, making the medicine increasingly ineffective. Desperate, Lin Yu asks for any possible alternative and promises he'll do whatever it takes. The doctor finally reveals one potential solution, a national treasure known as the Sunstone, capable of suppressing corruption and stopping further deterioration. The problem is that the Sunstone belongs to the government, and even when Lin Yu's extraordinarily gifted sister first fell into a coma, officials refused to provide it. Getting approval now seems almost impossible. Lin Yu can't understand why the state abandoned someone whose talent once surpassed an entire generation, but impossible or not, he refuses to watch his sister die. If becoming a warrior gives him even the slightest chance of reaching the Sunstone, then that is exactly what he'll do. That evening, Lin Yu arrives at the massive Crematorium 1 for his dangerous new assignment and reports directly to Processing Room 3. The chamber is strangely quiet, with 3 human corpses waiting inside, including medical personnel. Lin Yu respectfully addresses the fallen seniors before beginning his work, unaware that one body behind him has already started moving. Black corruption spreads through the corpse as it slowly rises with glowing red eyes, torn flesh, and a horrifying skeletal grin. Lin Yu immediately turns and recognizes another reanimated corpse, but this one feels completely different. The corrupted giant suddenly lunges with speed and discipline far beyond any mindless monster he has faced. A massive fist crashes down, shattering the tiles where Lin Yu stood moments earlier, and another swing nearly catches him as he escapes its enormous reach. Lin Yu quickly realizes the corpse once belonged to a trained warrior, and even after death, that combat experience remains embedded in its body. Corruption has erased its consciousness and reduced it to a growling monster, turning a warrior who once defended humanity into the very thing he fought against. Determined to end the fallen senior's suffering with respect, Lin Yu faces him head-on. The corpse charges again, combining monstrous strength with practiced martial movements. A heavy blow crashes against Lin Yu's guard and sends him sliding backward, confirming that military combat art still survives within the corpse's muscle memory. But without conscious thought, those techniques have become predictable patterns. Lin Yu reads its stance and balance, anticipates the next straight punch, and slips outside the attack line. He blocks another strike at the last possible moment, continues studying the sequence, then attacks the corpse's unstable lower stance and destroys its foundation. The instant its rhythm breaks, Lin Yu sees his opening and drives a crushing hook into the exposed head. The corrupted warrior spins violently before crashing onto the floor. Lin Yu quietly asks the fallen senior for forgiveness, believing the fight is over, but the corruption doesn't disappear. Instead, black energy surges violently through the body as its exposed muscles begin swelling and twisting into something grotesque. Lin Yu immediately backs away as the corpse rises again, now transformed into a towering purple-skinned monster with almost nothing human remaining. Its first punch crashes into his guard with enough force to shake the entire chamber, proving its strength and speed have increased dramatically. Even worse, the disciplined martial patterns from before are gone. The creature now attacks unpredictably with savage swings and crushing body blows, making its movements far harder to read. Lin Yu ducks beneath one massive arm and searches for an opening, only for the monster's chest to suddenly split open into a second mouth filled with sharp fangs. Close-range combat instantly becomes even more dangerous, but Lin Yu still manages to drive a fast strike upward before the jaws can close around him. The monster answers with a brutal sweeping blow that sends him flying sideways, smashing his armored shoulder toward the chamber wall as debris scatters across the floor. For the first time since entering Crematorium 1, Lin Yu realizes he may be facing something far more dangerous than an ordinary reanimated corpse. The creature no longer looks or fights like a warrior. Everything human has been consumed by corruption, leaving behind nothing but a savage monster. But Lin Yu remembers the fallen soldier's true life, a warrior who once stood against terrifying alien beasts to defend his homeland. Those inherited memories taught him what being a warrior truly means, and Lin Yu finally realizes that his subconscious respect for the man has been holding him back. Becoming this monster was never the fallen senior's choice, and hesitating now will only prolong his suffering. Lin Yu promises to help him finally rest with dignity. The mutation opens the massive mouth in its chest and charges again, but Lin Yu's enhanced perception identifies the heart as its critical weakness. Instead of retreating, he rushes straight toward the monster, slips beneath its massive swing, and transforms one arm into a powerful claw. After quietly telling the fallen senior to rest, Lin Yu drives his red talons directly through the chest maw and tears across the glowing weak point. The creature convulses violently as corrupted tendrils burst from its collapsing body, and one final strike sends the massive mutation crashing into the shattered floor. This time, it doesn't move again. Lin Yu realizes the battle would have been far more difficult if any human consciousness had remained inside the corpse, but defeating it brings another reward. His military combat art reaches level 3, officially advancing into intermediate mastery. Before he can celebrate, however, the dead monster suddenly releases a massive wave of purple corruption throughout the sealed chamber. Lin Yu covers his mouth and immediately retreats, but Room 3's safety system requires confirmation from both sides before the door can open, leaving him completely trapped. Human corruption is normally irreversible, and every breath inside this contaminated room could transform him into another monster. Dense black tendrils begin wrapping around his body as every attempt to escape fails. Lin Yu closes his eyes and braces himself, refusing to accept that this is how his story ends. But after several tense moments, something strange happens. Nothing. There's no mutation, no pain, and no loss of consciousness. Somehow, even this concentrated corruption can't infect him. Before he can understand why, another disturbance draws his attention toward one of the remaining bodies. Black energy is gathering around the corpse of a medical worker. Lin Yu immediately raises his guard, expecting another reanimation, but the body remains completely still. Looking closer, he notices a small golden pendant on the corpse, actively pulling the surrounding corruption into itself. The object is somehow absorbing black energy without becoming contaminated. Lin Yu instantly thinks of his sister. The doctor said only the sunstone could suppress the corruption, destroying her organs, and this mysterious pendant appears to possess exactly that kind of power. Could it contain the same material? After confirming the corpse isn't moving, Lin Yu carefully removes the pendant and holds onto this unexpected hope. For the first time, saving his sister no longer feels completely impossible. Once the corruption level drops enough, Room 3 finally unlocks, but Lin Yu stays long enough to thank the deceased doctor and apologize for taking his pendant. He respectfully places the body inside the furnace, and as the flames consume it, black energy separates from the corpse and activates another readable soul memory. Lin Yu suddenly enters the past of a man named Yang Jinlong, who once celebrated being accepted into the prestigious Huixia Central Medical University. Yang Jinlong devoted himself to developing powerful battlefield medicines capable of keeping warriors alive. He eventually became his master's final disciple and was promised both a medical legacy and a future position as dean. But instead of choosing a comfortable career, he went to the front lines to study the actual needs of wounded warriors. His research eventually produced a potion called Overwatch, capable of restoring an exhausted fighter to peak condition. Unfortunately, the miracle came with a horrifying price. Anyone who drank it would die exactly 10 minutes later. Even knowing the cost, surrounded soldiers willingly drank Overwatch when an overwhelming alien horde approached. They traded their final 10 minutes of life for enough strength to defend their homeland, charging into battle with no intention of retreating. Seeing their sacrifice, Yang Jinlong dedicated himself to perfecting his research and eventually developed another potion called Life Enchantress, designed around overwhelming restoration. Unlike a simple combat stimulant, it injects tremendous life force into the body, giving it extraordinary medical potential. When the soul memory ends, the system offers Lin Yu 3 rewards: Potion Mastery, a broken pen, or Healer's Benevolence. Thinking immediately about his sister, Lin Yu chooses Potion Mastery. In an instant, he gains expert pharmaceutical knowledge along with the formulas for Ascending Dragon Overwatch and Life Enchantress, giving him yet another possible path towards saving the person who matters most to him. Combined with the corruption-absorbing pendant, Lin Yu's new pharmaceutical knowledge finally makes curing his sister feel possible. He rushes back to City Central Hospital, hides beneath a hood, and enters her treatment area, only to see the monitor showing 75% corruption. Her condition has already reached a terrifying level, leaving almost no time to waste. With his sister still unconscious inside the nutrient pod and machines keeping her alive, Lin Yu immediately places the golden pendant against her chest. The pendant begins glowing as it absorbs corruption, so he waits desperately for the numbers to change. But 10 minutes pass, then 20, then 30, and the monitor remains stuck at 75%. As the nutrient pod closes again with no visible improvement, Lin Yu realizes the pendant alone may not be enough. Whether the problem is slow activation or corruption too deeply rooted in her body, he now has only one choice: develop Life Enchantress as quickly as possible. The next morning at King Tang Academy, while everyone else goes about their normal day, Lin Yu fills his desk with pharmaceutical books and studies the formulas inherited from Yang Jinlong. He immediately rules out Overwatch because its guaranteed death after 10 minutes makes testing impossible. Unfortunately, the ingredients for Life Enchantress exist only in severe disaster zones, while Ascending Dragon requires an extremely rare herb called Crimson Crystal Grass. With military restrictions surrounding corrupted areas, obtaining either formula's materials seems nearly impossible. Lin Jian notices Lin Yu has been distracted for the past 2 days and invites him to a newly opened cafe near their bus stop after school. Lin Yu politely declines because he already has urgent work that evening, though he doesn't explain what it is. Instead of pushing him, Lin Jian simply says that if his problems ever become too difficult to handle alone, she's willing to help. After Lin Yu saved her from Jiang Yang's group, she genuinely wants to repay him. Their conversation shifts when nearby students mention military vehicles entering residential neighborhoods overnight. Lin Yu immediately becomes suspicious because ordinary areas rarely receive military deployments unless something dangerous has happened. When Lin Jian quietly agrees that the truth probably won't stay hidden much longer, Lin Yu asks whether her family knows anything. After hesitating, she reveals that her father's patrol squad was suddenly called in to reinforce security overnight. The abandoned district north of the academy may soon be officially classified as a corrupted zone after corruption levels surged uncontrollably and a crystal-armored python established a nest there. The moment Lin Yu hears that name, everything clicks. Crimson crystal grass grows when python venom corrupts the right kind of soil, meaning the creature's nest could contain exactly the ingredient he desperately needs. Lin Jian warns him to keep this information completely secret, and Lin Yu promises he will, but he has already made his decision. Before the military completely seals the northern district, he's going in tonight. Under the cover of darkness, Lin Yu reaches the restricted area and finds fortified fencing, sweeping searchlights, and armed patrols guarding every obvious entrance. Instead of rushing in, he carefully studies their movements. He calculates that the searchlights create a half-second blind spot every 14 seconds, while patrols circle the perimeter every half hour. Once the timing is perfect, Lin Yu activates aura camouflage and bursts from cover. He slips between crossing searchlights, reaches the fence, vaults over the razor wire, and lands silently on the other side. One soldier suddenly turns around, sensing something behind him despite seeing nothing. But with only empty fencing and dark ruins in sight, his partner dismisses it as nerves. Lin Yu continues deeper into the abandoned district, moving alone through ruined streets and collapsed buildings as he searches for the python's nest. Eventually, a faint glow beyond a shattered structure catches his attention. There, an enormous crystal-armored python lies sleeping, coiled around several glowing red plants. Lin Yu immediately recognizes the crimson crystal grass he needs. Moving carefully, he climbs toward the massive creature and reaches the ledge beside its body, where the python's venom has created an entire patch of the rare herb. Seeing exactly what he came for, Lin Yu reaches out to harvest it without disturbing the sleeping beast. Unfortunately, the python's glowing eyes suddenly open. Its enormous head rises directly above him, and Lin Yu instantly realizes he's been caught. The monster attacks without warning, but his military combat art predicts the strike just in time. Lin Yu dives aside as the python's armored jaws crash down and completely demolish the ledge where he had been standing. Here's the continuation in the same tighter, natural American YouTube manhwa recap style. As the enraged crystal-armored python crashes down and buries the surrounding ruins beneath shattered concrete, Lin Yu doesn't retreat empty-handed. Instead, he dives straight for the crimson crystal grass and rips one complete plant from the ground before debris explodes around him. The python attacks again, but Lin Yu twists beneath its jaws while protecting the precious herb, leaving the monster biting nothing but air. As it rises above the ruined courtyard, its enormous body reveals layers of blue crystal armor, leaving Lin Yu alone against a terrifying beast with nowhere safe nearby. But something feels strange. The python's reactions are slower than expected, and when Lin Yu notices uneven scales separating around its neck, he immediately understands why. The creature is molting. Its temporary weakness gives him a narrow chance to survive. Even so, one sweep of its massive body pulverizes abandoned vehicles and masonry, and the resulting shockwave exposes Lin Yu's body heat, allowing the predator to track him even through aura camouflage. Running across open ground would be suicide, so Lin Yu refuses to abandon the crimson crystal grass and deliberately heads deeper between the ruined buildings. The python follows exactly as he hoped, forcing its enormous body into an increasingly narrow alley. Lin Yu races through the passage while the monster repeatedly smashes against both walls, confirming that its size severely restricts its movement. Eventually, the python forces its head between the buildings, roaring only a short distance away but unable to maneuver properly. Lin Yu finally stops running and turns around. He never came here just to escape. He was searching for the perfect place to kill it. The python violently widens the opening with its armored skull, convinced its prey has trapped himself, but Lin Yu has already noticed soft red tissue exposed between the separated crystal scales caused by molting. His hands transform into crimson claws as he prepares one decisive attack. The moment the python lunges, Lin Yu charges directly beneath its descending jaws and targets the vulnerable seam between its weakened scales. His glowing claws tear deep into the exposed flesh, bypassing the crystal armor completely. The monster freezes as lethal damage spreads through its massive body, cracked scales scattering across the alley while Lin Yu completes the slash in one clean motion. The crystal-armored python collapses behind him, defeated by a perfectly targeted strike. Even Lin Yu is surprised that careful planning allowed him to kill such a dangerous alien beast alone. The system rewards him with 5% claw skill proficiency, bringing level 1 progress to 95%. Now only one final increase stands between him and the next level, leaving him curious about what new ability the upgrade might unlock. The next day, Lin Yu arrives at Tonson Pharmacy with all the ingredients he needs. The only thing preventing him from creating a sending dragon is access to a proper potion mixing room. Unfortunately, the staff immediately reject his request, explaining that their equipment costs a fortune before throwing the persistent student outside without even hearing him out. Lin Yu spends the rest of the day searching across the city for an affordable alternative. Yang Jinlong's memories included a private laboratory, but never revealed its location, while buying the necessary equipment himself would cost hundreds of thousands or even millions. Just when he's running out of options, a traditional-looking shop catches his attention. The sign reads Xingxin Hall, a strangely familiar name, and the shelves of medicinal jars inside reveal that it's another pharmacy. With nothing to lose, Lin Yu enters and finds a young clerk completely absorbed in a mobile game instead of watching the store. Lin Yu briefly wonders how this place has avoided going bankrupt before approaching the counter and asking whether they have a proper potion mixing room. The distracted clerk finally looks up and suspiciously asks why some random student needs access to private equipment. Lin Yu immediately offers 1,000 yuan for 2 hours. When the clerk still hesitates, Lin Yu raises the offer to 2,000 and threatens to leave if he isn't interested. Money quickly wins the argument. The clerk accepts with sudden enthusiasm and leads Lin Yu deeper into the pharmacy, secretly planning to erase the surveillance footage afterward so nobody discovers the unauthorized rental. He gives Lin Yu exactly 2 hours and warns him to leave everything exactly as he found it. The clerk makes one thing clear before leaving Lin Yu alone. There are no refunds for unused time, and if he damages even one machine, he'll have to pay the full price. Inside the mixing room, however, Lin Yu finds professional equipment far beyond what he needs to create a sending dragon. The only awkward part is being forced to wear a pink protective suit clearly designed for a woman. Knowing someone connected to the pharmacy could return at any moment, Lin Yu wastes no time. Using his expert potion mastery, he begins extracting the medicinal essence from each ingredient, carefully feeding the precious crimson crystal grass into the processor without wasting any of its energy. His inherited knowledge guides every temperature adjustment and every second of processing until several containers are filled with different colored extracts. Lin Yu measures each one according to Yang Jinlong's exact formula and combines them into a bright golden solution. Everything appears successful until black fumes suddenly rise from the container. Before he can react, the equipment erupts in a violent explosion, forcing Lin Yu to shield himself from the burning spray. For a moment, he thinks the entire batch is ruined, but the scattered golden liquid begins solidifying into glowing medicinal masses. The strange reaction didn't destroy the potion. It successfully created a sending dragon. Lin Yu divides the finished medicine into 4 carefully measured doses, maximizing everything he gained from that single rare harvest. Then, rather than risk giving an unknown medicine to someone else, he decides to test the first dose himself. The taste is horrible, but the moment he swallows it, powerful energy explodes through his body. His eyes widen as fiery vitality surges through every channel, forcing him to brace himself against the overwhelming reaction. Lin Yu quickly realizes Ascending Dragon does much more than temporarily increase vitality. It mobilizes energy that the body previously failed to absorb and allows it to undergo a second round of absorption. As the violent flow gradually stabilizes, Lin Yu discovers there are no obvious harmful side effects. He estimates that a single dose provides benefits equivalent to roughly 20 ordinary blood-boosting potions. Even more importantly, it regulates vitality throughout the body and increases the potential for future growth. Yang Jinlong's decade of research could completely change how warriors develop across Huixia, but Lin Yu immediately decides to keep the formula secret until he becomes strong enough to protect himself from anyone who might try to exploit it. Then he suddenly remembers why the name Xingxin Hall sounded so familiar. One fallen soldier's soul memory mentioned this exact pharmacy as his family's inherited business, supposedly managed by his capable sister. Seeing how neglected the shop has become, Lin Yu decides to repay the deceased soldier in a small way. He leaves behind one dose of Ascending Dragon with a handwritten note before cleaning the laboratory and preparing to leave. The suddenly friendly clerk offers his contact information in case Lin Yu ever needs the equipment again, and Lin Yu accepts, preserving access to this unexpectedly useful laboratory. By the time he leaves, dawn is already breaking. Later, Xingxin Hall's CEO, Gu Yuya, returns after selling family property to fund repeated failures in her potion research. Exhausted and frustrated, she privately wishes her deceased brother were still alive to guide her. But the moment she enters, she notices the mysterious potion and note left behind. When she learns that Chen Fei secretly rented the mixing room to an unknown customer, she's furious. Still, instead of wasting time arguing, Gu Yuya tests the potion first. Only 10 minutes later, her entire attitude changes. She immediately demands to know who created such an astonishing medicine and practically tackles the terrified clerk for answers. Unfortunately, when they call the number Lin Yu provided, his phone is already turned off. Desperate to find him, Gu Yuya orders Chen Fei to keep calling and promises him a 1,000,000 yuan bonus if he successfully brings the mysterious pharmacist back. Meanwhile, Lin Yu has already moved on to the city's crowded underground black market. Hidden beneath a hood, he sets up a small stall and offers 2 body-strengthening potions, claiming they provide 20 times the normal effect. Curious shoppers quickly gather around, but most openly mock him, arguing that even ordinary blood-boosting medicine only doubles vitality, making his claim sound ridiculous. Lin Yu doesn't care about their skepticism. His sister's medical expenses keep growing, and he needs money immediately. Then a powerful young buyer named Kokun arrives with bodyguards and a blonde companion. Seeing the unusually large crowd, his companion leads him toward Lin Yu's stall while the guards push ordinary shoppers aside. Kokun examines the sign and sees that the first dose costs 5,000,000, while the second costs twice as much. To him, that amount is pocket change. He casually picks up one tube, studies it closely, then looks at the hooded seller and asks whether Lin Yu is nothing more than a paid shill working for whoever actually made the potion. Before Kao-kun can decide whether to trust the potion, a muscular black market veteran interrupts and calls the 20-fold effect an obvious scam he has seen countless times. Ko-kun reveals himself as the eldest young master of the Ko family in Minghai, immediately dismissing any idea that he could be some paid shill. The veteran still proposes a bet. If the medicine works, he'll publicly apologize, but if it fails, the seller's stall gets destroyed. Before Kokun can respond, the aggressive man moves toward Lin Yu's merchandise. Lin Yu instantly kicks him backward with enough force to lift his massive body off the ground. His eyes turn cold as crimson claws emerge, warning everyone not to interfere with his business. With another move, he slams the veteran into the stone floor and orders him to stay quiet unless he actually plans to buy something. Watching this overwhelming strength, Kokun begins wondering whether Lin Yu himself became so powerful because of the mysterious potion. With little to lose, he transfers 5,000,000 yuan and purchases the first dose of Ascending Dragon. His blonde companion offers to test it for poison first, but Kokun refuses and drinks the entire tube himself. Lin Yu calmly warns him that activation brings extreme pain that ordinary people may not be able to endure. Almost immediately, burning red energy erupts around Kaokun as unbearable agony forces him onto one knee. His terrified entourage assumes their young master has been poisoned and begins threatening everyone nearby, but Lin Yu explains that Kokun simply needs enough endurance to survive the transformation. Refusing to give in, Kokun activates his family's cultivation technique and circulates the violent medicinal energy through his body. Gradually, the chaotic power stabilizes. After 30 minutes, Kokun rises in excitement as his vitality successfully breaks through 10. The potion really works. He immediately demands the remaining dose and offers to buy every future batch Lin Yu produces. Lin Yu prices the second tube at 1,000,000 and limits future purchases to 1 dose per month. Kokun pays without hesitation, leaving the surrounding crowd stunned that the unbelievable 20-fold claim was actually real. Lin Yu then reminds the muscular veteran about their bet. With no way to deny what everyone witnessed, the humiliated man kneels and apologizes for failing to recognize the seller's ability. Now that Lin Yu has enough money to renew his sister's treatment, he quickly packs up and prepares to leave before the hospital closes. But Ko-kun follows him and asks the mysterious pharmacist to wait. Impressed by both his strength and medicine, Ko-kun offers him a position as the Ko family's personal pharmacist, promising virtually any salary or conditions he wants. Lin Yu refuses because he values his freedom and has no interest in being controlled by a powerful family. Ko-kun changes his approach and proposes a partnership instead. Lin Yu provides formulas while the Ko family handles production and resources. That offer catches Lin Yu's attention because their network could help him locate the 5 missing ingredients for Life Enchantress. He agrees to consider cooperation if Ko-kun find Purple Cloud Lotus, Ice Heart Grass, Radiant Leaf Fruit, Dragon Whisker Vine, and Earth Dragon Essence. Ko-kun's blonde companion recognizes Earth Dragon Essence as a specialty from neighboring Fangu and explains that official martial artists can access the Martial Arts Association's ingredient database. Ko-kun believes he can immediately help secure 3 ingredients, while Radiant Leaf Fruit may require challenging the beasts guarding it, and Dragon Whisker Vine is expected to appear at an auction next month. The two exchange contact information and agree to share any new information. After Lin Yu leaves, Ko-kun orders everyone present to keep the mysterious pharmacist's identity and potion completely secret, planning to report everything personally to his father. Soon afterward, King Tang Academy begins its physical testing. Inside the gymnasium, an examiner explains that punching scores will determine the limited spots available for the warrior assessment, so every student must give their strongest performance. A muscular green-haired student steps forward first and delivers an explosive punch, recording 312 kilograms and immediately setting an intimidating benchmark. Students whisper that anyone finishing in the top 3 will receive a guaranteed warrior assessment spot. Lin Yu quietly estimates that after all his recent improvements, his full strength should now be around 1,000 kilograms. However, the examiner warns that each student gets only 1 officially recorded attempt. When Lin Yu's turn arrives, he deliberately holds back and throws what he expects to be an easy qualifying punch. The impact still thunders through the machine and shakes its reinforced frame, leaving Lin Jian watching anxiously from the crowd. But when the result appears, everyone freezes. The monitor records only 48 kilograms beside Lin Yu's name. Lai Yu immediately mocks him, telling him to forget about passing today's test, while confused students wonder how someone who defeated Jiang Yang could possibly score below even an elementary level standard. Lin Yu knows something is wrong. Even while deliberately restraining himself, there's no chance his punch was that weak. He declares that the machine is malfunctioning and requests a retest on another calibrated device. The examiner refuses, insisting every machine was uniformly calibrated and that the official result must be accepted. That convenient answer only strengthens Lin Yu's suspicion that someone deliberately tampered with his test. Rather than argue, he calmly says undeniable results will speak louder than any prepared excuse. Then he turns back toward the suspicious machine, raises his fist, and unleashes another far heavier punch. Lin Yu's second punch lands with concentrated force, cracking the machine's reinforced housing. Director Lai Munu immediately loses his temper and demands to know whether Lin Yu thinks the assessment is some kind of joke. Pointing to the student's old 0.62 vitality record, he insists that a score of 48 kilograms is perfectly reasonable. Lin Yu calmly fires back with one simple question. If the equipment is truly accurate, why is the director so afraid of letting him retest? Furious at being challenged publicly, Lai Manu accuses him of disrupting discipline, disrespecting teachers, and deliberately damaging academy equipment before deciding to personally enforce the rules. The retired frontline warrior suddenly charges, throwing a powerful fist directly at Lin Yu's head, but Lin Yu slips aside and lets the attack cut through empty space. Li Minu immediately follows with a rising kick, only for Lin Yu to rotate beneath it and prepare a low counter. The surrounding students quickly realize this is no ordinary confrontation. Director Lai is a former frontline warrior, making him far more dangerous than any student Lin Yu has faced. Instead of backing down, Lin Yu proposes a deal. If he defeats the director, he earns one legitimate retest. Lai Munu considers the challenge pure arrogance and attacks without even imagining he could lose. He blocks Lin Yu's first punch with hardened forearms, then suddenly grabs him by the throat and tries to overpower him through superior strength. But Lin Yu traps the gripping arm, climbs over the director's shoulder, and twists the joint while using Lai Minyu's own back as leverage. He breaks free and flips away, sending both fighters across the examination floor. Lai Minu quickly recovers and charges again, unwilling to be embarrassed in front of the entire academy. But Lin Yu's technical skill is already forcing him to reconsider just how weak this student really is. Then Lin Yu suddenly disappears from his sight. Aura camouflage carries him behind the director, where a crimson claw is already tearing toward Lai Minyu's back. At the last possible second, Lin Yu cancels claw skill, knowing those blades could kill his teacher, and replaces the attack with an ordinary fist. That brief hesitation gives Lai Minu enough time to sense the danger. He spins around, catches Lin Yu's wrist with both hands, and uses his superior strength to violently throw him into the floor. The impact cracks the ground beneath Lin Yu, as Lai Manu declares the fight over and refuses to change his original failed assessment result. He even accuses Lin Yu of relying on tricks to steal a warrior assessment quota. Lin Jian quickly helps the injured student up and urges him to visit the infirmary, but Lin Yu refuses. He still intends to earn that retest, and after experiencing Lai Minyu's strength firsthand, he believes the gap can be overcome with just one more meaningful improvement. That night, Lin Yu returns to Crematorium 1, hiding his school injuries beneath protective equipment while the unfair assessment continues burning in his mind. This time, he makes himself a promise. When he challenges Lai Minu again, he'll defeat him using military combat art alone and leave the director with no excuse to deny him. Upon entering the facility, Lin Yu unexpectedly finds Captain Chen Zhen waiting there. Chen explains that frontline corpse shipments have quadrupled, forcing his squad to provide additional security. He immediately notices Lin Yu's fresh injuries and asks what happened, but Lin Yu casually dismisses them as the result of sparring with a teacher and learning a few moves. Instead, he asks whether he can process more corpses tonight. Extra wages would help support his sister, and every additional body could also mean another opportunity to grow stronger before joining Chen Zhen's squad. Although concerned about overworking him, Chen reveals that 8 additional corpses are waiting for cremation. Lin Yu accepts all 8 without hesitation, while Chen warns him to call for help immediately if anything goes wrong. Once alone, Lin Yu begins searching the guarded storage area for exactly what he needs: a fallen senior who mastered advanced military combat art. He respectfully checks each covered body until discovering a broad, scarred older warrior wearing the uniform of an elite special operations brigade. This is exactly what he was looking for. Lin Yu places a hand on the corpse, apologizes for entering the fallen senior's memories, and activates Soul Devour. He witnesses brutal hand-to-hand training under a gray-haired squad leader, followed by disciplined battles against powerful alien beasts across devastated front lines. Even when surrounded, the leader orders his soldiers to fight their way out together rather than surrender. The system eventually identifies the deceased as Special Class Warrior Jiang Mingjun and presents 3 cultivation choices. Lin Yu immediately chooses military martial art, believing this elite brigade version could contain techniques far beyond what he already possesses. The gamble pays off. His military combat art upgrades to level 4, granting a 50% physical enhancement along with 2 powerful new techniques: Penetrating Force and Crushing Fist. His attack prediction also improves from half a second to a full 1 second, giving him far more time to read incoming attacks. Even Soul Devour receives an upgrade, strengthening his ability to consume souls through physical contact while retaining its 12-hour cooldown. With Penetrating Force capable of bypassing defenses and Crushing Fist delivering explosive counterattacks, Lin Yu finally gains exactly the kind of breakthrough he needs for his rematch against Director Lai. Now that Lin Yu knows exactly how to challenge Director Lai Munu again, he decides to master his new techniques as quickly as possible. After finishing his shift, he spends the entire night training alone in a quiet gym, repeatedly practicing the movements inherited from the fallen warrior. Crushing Fist generates explosive power through the waist and abdomen without requiring a large arm swing, making it a perfect hidden counter for his rematch. Lin Yu repeatedly drives compact punches into a suspended training bag, but something feels wrong. Instead of concentrating all his power into a single point, each impact spreads unevenly across the surface. Even though he's copying the inherited movements almost perfectly, he knows he's missing something important. That's when Captain Chen Zhen enters and realizes Lin Yu has apparently been training all night. Seeing him struggle, Chen offers to personally evaluate the technique and tells Lin Yu to punch him directly. Lin Yu doesn't hesitate and immediately launches his Crushing Fist, only for Chen Zhen to stop the supposedly explosive attack with a single palm. Lin Yu is stunned, but Chen quickly identifies the problem. His waist is generating power correctly, but his shoulder drops too early, revealing the direction of the attack and disrupting the force. A proper Crushing Fist requires relaxed shoulders while the waist and abdomen handle the twisting motion and power generation. Lin Yu immediately takes the advice, adjusts his posture, and tries again. This time, his compact punch sends concentrated force straight through the reinforced training bag. Feeling the difference instantly, Lin Yu finally understands how Crushing Fist is supposed to work. When he casually reveals that he only started practicing the technique tonight, Chen Zhen is left speechless. Lin Yu didn't just learn Crushing Fist overnight. He's already beginning to combine it with internal penetrating force. Watching this incredible rate of improvement, Chen Zhen can't help wondering whether his newest recruit might actually be a once-in-a-generation martial arts prodigy.